now we move on to our next speaker. He is Shri Prakash Belamadi, and I'll just give a brief about him. He's an Indian theatre, film, television, and media personality. He's also a teacher, activist, and journalist. He lives in Bangalore. He's been a motivational speaker and also a TEDx speaker. He's been speaking also a lot in different conferences. He's also a mentor with the founding team of BISFF. It's the Bangalore International Short Film Festival since 2010. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Rupa. Hi, everybody. I'm a practitioner, so I will start with some numbers just to indicate to you what the state of the art is in our business. Broadly, if you look at the media and entertainment industry, because of the somewhat murky way in which in some quarters the accounts are handled, of course, it's getting streamlined in other places. But broadly, we are about a $30 billion industry in India. That includes cinema and television and other graphical arts. We produce about 1,300 to 1,500 feature films a year in about 25 languages. We have 900 24/7 channels. And we don't know how many people are directly and not so directly employed, but we estimate that it could be anywhere between 500,000 to 1 million employees. And these are complex arts. That means there is the visual arts component in it. There is music. There is Angika, that means body and movement arts are there. So the question is, who is educating all these people is a big question for us. And most of them actually train on the job, or they come from traditions of training. Now, the problem is that these traditions of training are not recognized, at least till now. I know that the new education policy is seeking to address many of these problems, but our traditional means of learning, what Rupaji in the beginning itself said was a Guru Shishya Parampara, for instance, is not actually formalized or seen as a scholarship or academic brilliance or excellence in the, what do you call, the official or the mainstream idea of academics. So let me give you an example. If you want to look at an Indian school of music, if you want to come to something contemporary, you'll have to look at film music. Mainly, really, I mean, some Bollywood and our other Desi languages, which make music for cinema. Otherwise, if you want to look at a more formal system of music, you need to go back hundreds of thousands of years. And does the formal system recognize them as brilliant students or scholars while they're studying the liberal arts? The liberal arts programs typically tend to do this. They convert what is practiced art, whether it's sculpture or filmmaking or any of these visual arts or music or drama or dancing or any of these things, typically they convert it to film studies, because the proof of knowing something about it, you reduce it on paper as theory and then say you're a scholar. But what about the practitioner? This is the question. Dr. Ashish Nandi at one seminar famously said this. He said there are more than 50 academic programs at graduate, undergraduate, and postgraduate levels, PhD levels also in India, which actually offer courses in music, for instance, in classical music. But not a single musician of any significance has emerged from these 50-odd universities. So where do these people learn? What is the pedagogical framework of their learning? So it goes back to a Guru Shishya Parampara that is extant. And somehow we need to reconcile that knowledge with what kind of new pedagogical framework we want to introduce into formal education. The second problem is this. if it's a skill, just a skills idea, even if you do a karaoke program, if it's a very good app, it will tell you that you were 95% or 80% or 70% close to the original song or track. A computer can do this actually. A program can tell you if you're singing the song correctly. Because you can actually reduce quality to quantity there. You can see the number of deviations from the original and you can say you've learned something or not. I think at a basic skills level, I think the problem is fairly easy to handle, because when you want to measure outcomes of the pedagogy, what they've learned, yeah, you can do that, I think. But the problem comes when it comes to creativity, when it comes to expression. Then I think it becomes qualitative and it becomes extremely difficult to know what they have learned, whether they're good or bad, and by what standards and yardsticks you judge. I'll tell you, for instance, if when Filmfare gives a set of awards, it is very likely that it will be completely different from the set of awards that will be given by the jury in a national awards setup. And the national awards jury can decide completely differently depending on what government is in power that actually puts this jury together. I think there we have a great risk, because ideology comes into play, political affiliations come into play, long-held divides. We have many fissures of identities here, right? We have divisions of community of religion, communities of caste, communities of subcastes within a caste, divisions of region, divisions of state, political ideologies, and they keep overlapping and complicating sometimes one with the other. So I am saying, when we want to look at evolving pedagogies for training or teaching or instruction in the arts, I think we must bite the bullet and respect the documented or undocumented traditions which exist only in the orality of India, in the oral traditions of India, in the extant Guru Shishya Paramparas. And we need to reconcile with what magic that had, that it could survive kind of subterranean underground for centuries without any formal training provided by the state or the rulers of the time. Because if we don't do that, we will have a second-class mindset and will produce second-class art for all time. So when you say Indian architecture, it is mostly imitative. An Indian school of architecture exists in the classical traditions. A Sthapati will tell you how a temple needs to be built in different parts of India. He'll tell you all the lore connected with it. He'll tell you all the mythologies connected with it, all the belief systems that come with it. And he will tell you all the science and technology that is involved in doing it. But when you look at modern architecture, it needs to go by blue books that have been written in the West. And you need to imitate that. It has happened, unfortunately, in the way we make films also sometimes. Although I think that we're beginning to see a new set of filmmakers that are creative and they can strike out and do things differently. Especially in the visual arts, I think, there is a fracture between what was traditional visual arts and what is the visual arts now. A very famous dramaturg once said to us, because we had done a seminar on I'll finish it in 2 minutes, on what was Desi and what was Margi. What is traditional in drama and what is mainstream in drama. And she told me that, that question is arrogant, because there are more than 500,000 villages in India. Each one of them have got their village festivals, and there are arts, traditional arts connected with those festivals, and they perform all the time. And those performances are happening with the masses across the country, across the year. And you do a festival once a year in this tiny place which can sit 300 people, and you're calling yourself mainstream. And I find that arrogant, she said. She's right. That was 10 years ago, and I see that point. Basically, we can actually recognize that there's actually a system of training. There are pedagogies in the arts training in India, and the new education policy needs to actually reconcile these traditions of learning with and apply the rigor of modern academics to it. Then we can have perhaps a happy harmony and marriage in this field. Thank you.
Me, please. Yes. Thank you, sir. I can't agree with you more. And the government now, I'm sure that we will come up with something which was to do with the high quality, the best student teacher ratio of 1:1, and bring out some classy, good artists out of our education system. And thank you very much for your insights. You've asked some very, very important questions, and I think we'll document these. And it's imperative that we need to build it in the systems that are in the making in the government right now through the new education policy of 2020. There is, as I said, 33,000 crores that have been assigned to make this a success in 2021, and it will be a revolution in the history of Indian education system. We are going to go back to where we started from, and I hope experts like you will make this make this journey better for all of us, and have our students get the best out of it for future. Moving on, thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your inputs.